Hello everyone. Happy Wednesday. I hope you all are having a great start to the week. We are here to talk about Invincible Season 3, Episode 2, my favorite episode, without a doubt. And, of course we're doing this the night before the new episode is supposed to come out. And I got nothing for you because these 3 episode premieres stress me out. So if you don't see an episode 3 in-depth review, that is why. But honestly, I feel like we all have a gist on episode 3. We have the stuff with Oliver, Debbie, Mark and Eve. I think we understand. I feel like a lot of episode 3 explores the fallout from episode 2, while the stuff with Oliver does come to a head, which is why I maybe wanted to talk about it, but we'll be okay. So let's not even waste time, right? So we open episode 2 with Cecil's past. And this is basically a defining moment and mission for Cecil, to the point where it leads to his death and then his rebirth. And I was not expecting Cecil to die in the way that he did. I honestly thought they were going to pull some plot armor, have some acid splash on his face or the chemical agent that explains the wrinkly pinkly, but that's not what happened. His body was full on gone, and I was like, oh, okay. That's crazy. A lot of jaw-dropping moments in this episode, as well as episode 3. But holy cannoli. So I think this whole sequence is interesting because Cecil went through a near identical experience that Mark has gone through. The only difference is he took it to another level by assassinating the people who were responsible for the chemical agent getting out and 17 people being killed in the mission that Cecil was in, right? He finds out Knucklebuster and Force Fist are back and working with the GDA, and he shoots him in the head. He goes to prison. It's a pipeline to him being the GDA director, so it works out in his favor, right? But at the same time, you have a unique perspective to offer Mark. You understand why he's reacting the way he is because you were Mark, and yet nowhere in the episode does he offer any type of empathy. Does he offer a way to de-escalate the situation? Instead, he's just full throttle, and I feel like at this point he should have stepped in and became the adult, because Mark, I'm not saying he was right in the way that he went about things this episode. He's not 100% right. However, Cecil's response, I just feel like you should have stepped in just to de-escalate things a little bit. Just a little bit. Instead of feeling like you had something to prove. That's kind of how it felt. Okay, me editing. I forgot to mention. So during this past sequence, we meet Radcliffe, which is the old director of the GDA. And we learn that he's responsible for kind of instilling the beliefs and practices that Cecil holds now in regards to, restoring order to chaos. And I think it's very interesting how easily he kind of slipped into that mindset. Of course, it happened over the course of his time in prison, and we don't really see what he did while he was in prison to kind of get things the way they were. But I really wish we would have had a moment where Cecil questioned himself, am I really doing the right thing? Is this really what I need to do? Because it even leads into when Cecil first meets Omni-Man, and he's like, I'm gonna keep my good eye on Omni-Man, which, understandable. Totally understand. I get you don't want to play naive, but at what cost? Because now we're here with Mark, and I just feel like Cecil is so rigid. He lost a part of himself and he never went to get it back. And I would have liked to have seen Cecil from back then just kind of coming into play now, as far as his empathy and questioning the things around him, instead of just kind of viewing things as well, I'm here to help people no matter what. And it's are we sure about that? But anyways, but nonetheless, we cut to the present day, right? And this is what I'm talking about, because they're in the White Room. Mark is just standing there. He's literally just standing there. And Cecil immediately classifies him as a threat. And it's that's wild. Over this disagreement, I understand. It's crazy because throughout this whole episode, you get pulled to either side of the argument. And I understand why he feels maybe defensive, because, Mark is pretty angry, but at the same time, there were ways to de-escalate, and Cecil explored nothing. Not even as simple as just having that conversation, right? So Cecil pulls out the reanimant just immediately as if it's instinct. And then Mark is like, well, do you use these people to keep D.A. Sinclair and Darkwing in line? And so Cecil dodges the question, and then he just gaslights Mark. He's like, well, they don't have the powers that you do. And Mark's like, well, I only use them to help people. And he's like, who are you helping right now? And it's like, don't play stupid, Cecil. Okay. So then Cecil kind of clocks Mark a little bit, right? He's like, well, look, you have your viewpoint and you don't leave room for anyone else's. You threaten those who disagree with you. And I'm just kind of like, well, you're right. You're right, but it's only happening with you. It's only happening with you. I would understand if maybe there were other instances of Mark kind of, threatening. Like if in the first episode, when he said Multipaw was going to prison and then someone disagreed with him and then maybe he gave him a look or threatened him, right? Then I could totally understand that. But that's not really what happened. Mark has never really gone that far. So for Cecil to say that is just kind of bullshit, right? So Mark disproves everything I just said and threatens Cecil. So Cecil's like, no problem. He whips out his secret weapon, which is this emitter, which is a callback to last season when they went to Atlantis, right? And I remember that scene because Cecil noticed how the sound affected Mark. So he basically had a little emitter implanted in Mark without his consent, and now it's just a bona fide weapon. He turns it on. Mark is in agony. It's pulsing from his head. He's like, ah. And I'm just sitting here how does any of this help you, Cecil? How does any of this get your point across? You see, it's just we go to 0 to 1,000. But then later on in the episode, people try to turn it on Mark, and it's no, we're not doing this, okay? Mark should not have bulldozed his way in there. He should have been calm. But at the same time, what are we doing, Cecil? So after the secret weapon is brought about, okay, Mark dashes out of there. He ends up at the Guardians HQ. So he's like, listen, Cecil is working with murderers. You all saw this. The Guardians are like, oh my God, what is going on? So then Cecil comes in and he's like, this has nothing to do with y'all. Just relax. Like, I'm not trying to kill the kid. Literally not 2 seconds after he says that, he whips out this secret weapon again, and he turns it on. So Mark is in pain. Like, he's like on the ground in agony over this sound pulsating from his head. The Reanimen are going crazy they're not going crazy. They're about to bring Mark in. And the Guardians are like, we're not doing this. So they step up and defend Mark, which I really appreciated, because I feel like Mark is always taking on these intense battles alone. So it's nice that he has some help from the Guardians, right? So they go and they fight the Reanimen, right? And so at some point during the fight, I think Robot Man frees Mark from the sound, right? He ends up turning off the frequency. After that happens, Mark goes off, okay? Mark is done. And everyone's just sitting here everyone is in shock. And I understand, because they've never seen Mark display that type of anger and strength. But also, Mark was laying on the ground in agony for a good 2 to 5 minutes with this sound pulsating from his head. I feel like anyone in that position would react the way he did, so I understand why they're shocked, but also you can't be shocked. Come on. So, hello. So then, after all that happens, after Mark goes off, Cecil has the gall to stand there and say, well, look at this. Look at what you did. Everywhere you go, destruction follows. I'm like, hello? Did we watch the same series of events? Did we watch how we got to this point? Okay. So then Cecil calls Mark a hypocrite, bringing up him helping Omni-Man back in season 2 and saying, oh, God forbid anyone else screws up and tries to do right. And it's I don't know how you're calling purposeful acts of terror a screw up. You're using the wrong terms right now. These were not screw ups. I don't understand. It's very bizarre, the road that Cecil is taking right now. And the thing is, when Mark went to help Omni-Man and all of that stuff, right? he was still uneasy around him. It's not like he kind of saw him as a goody all of a sudden. Like his whole viewpoint on him just shifted overnight. That's not what happened. And Omni-Man's in prison. Like he's literally in prison. So my thing is, I just don't know where Cecil's coming from. I think he's full of shit. So all of this ends. We're at Debbie's house, okay? Mark is regrouping. He's recuperating from the whole thing. Eve is there as well. Debbie's pissed, as to be expected. And so Mark lets Debbie know, like, hey, I threatened Cecil. I told him, like, if you come near my family, I'm going to kill you. Oliver slides in the frame like... Like, he was ready. All he needed to hear was kill. So he's like, okay, so why isn't Cecil dead? Why is he not off the face of the earth? What's going on? So then Mark and Debbie are like, whoa. We don't kill, without offering a reason or an explanation as to like why they don't kill. Like, kids pick up more than you think. Like, I just feel like if Oliver had heard in that moment from Mark, of all people, who he looks up to, like, hey, you know, life is valuable, instead of just saying, well, I wanted, you know, Cecil to know, like, that I meant it. I wanted him to believe it. I was just angry, though. Like, I didn't mean it. Like, no, tell him life is precious. No wonder Oliver goes off the deep end. I mean, he probably would have anyways, but good gracious, there was no effort made. So then Debbie and Mark proceed to shut down Oliver's desire to be a hero yet again. Like, Debbie's like, look, you cannot go out and help Mark, like, da 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 da. And I thought in that moment she was also shutting down, like, his desire to train. And I'm just like, well, damn, you're showing this kid you can't keep your word for anything. And Debbie was like, okay, well, and stop flying too. I was like, girl. So we cut away from all that, and Mark and Eve are sitting outside the house and they're talking. So this time around, Mark confesses his feelings the right way, and it was very cute. But Eve kind of shuts it down. I feel like she was a little bit scared, you know, of stepping into something with Mark, which is understandable. But she does make a good decision. She's like, we both need to think about it. I'm not dealing with this. So then we cut to Guardians HQ. This is a doozy. So we're at Guardians HQ, right? And so everyone's just kind of reeling from what happened. Immortal, Samson, and Kate show up to help clean up and everything. So Rex, Ray, and Monster Girl are not having it. They basically recognize, like, to Cecil, they're expendable, okay? And then Black Samson decides to chime in with his non-opinion. Like, you weren't even there in any aspect. This man goes on to say, oh, well, Mark made Cecil go too far. You know, Mark needs to learn what happens when you don't think things through. I'm sitting here like, so Mark made Cecil, the grown man in this situation, go too far? He made him go too far? Oh, okay. And so then Immortal chimes in. And, you know, Immortal's never seen it from Mark. So, you know, he's like, yeah. I'm glad he's facing consequences. You know, Cecil was always soft on him. Blah, blah, blah. And I'm just sitting here like, who even are you? Why are you here? You don't matter. So then Monster Girl jumps in, defending Mark, and basically calls Immortal a dick because when he mentioned Daddy Dearest, she's like, his dad almost killed him. What? So then Kate, here comes Kate. You know, Kate decides to come in and have an opinion. So then Kate literally turns the conversation into it being about her. And I'm just like, can you shut the hell up? Oh my God. So then she says, basically she feels the way Immortal does, where it's a privilege to be a part of the Guardians, and she died for this opportunity and they should all just follow orders. And it's like, girl, you really have no mind of your own, right? Right? Because this is crazy. So then Kate says that she went through as much as Rex and Ray did, maybe more. I said, what? Are you out of your mind? Are you off your rocker? So then it's so crazy. So Ray snaps back, of course, because it's total bullshit. And then Kate basically wants a trophy for not being human after going through a tragedy like Ray. So like Ray obviously broke down, and then Kate decides to say, well, I didn't fall apart, you know, the minute that things happened, something to that extent. And I was just sitting here like, This is pick me behavior. I swear to you, it's pick me behavior. There's no other way to go about it. There's no other way. So then it gets to a point where Immortal's like, y'all get back to work. Rex is like, I'm not doing this. No, I don't have to do this. None of us have to do this. So then Immortal basically reiterates what Kate said. It's a privilege. It's an honor to be here. There's sacrifices. There's hardships. And it's like, this is what you qualify as a hardship? Like, this is insane. So he's like, if you don't want to deal with this, then leave. And then Rex eats him up. He calls him a sanctimonious, hypocritical prick. And there was something else. And it was amazing. I ate every moment of it up. So then Bulletproof, Robot Man, Monster Girl, and Ray all decide to leave. And I just love that because they really were choosing themselves and their freedom in that moment. They were like, I'm not dealing with this. And also in solidarity with Mark. And so we kind of find out a little later, though, that Robot Man has ulterior motives for leaving outside of just Monster Girl, because Black Samson makes a comment. And, you know, Robot Man's like, well, you know, Invincible Man's like the most powerful guy on the planet. Like, I'm gonna need him on my side. And you know what? That's real. That is real and honest. And I understand that. And I feel like Robot Man on the low kind of shares the same thoughts as Cecil. Like, I think he feels like maybe Mark could turn at some point and go off the deep end. And if so, like, he kind of wants to make sure he's on his side. Self-preservation. So then after all that happens, Cecil kind of comes back and sees like half the team is gone. So then in the wise decision making, he decides to induct the Darkwing into the Guardians. Why did you think that was a great idea? So, okay. And Donald kind of calls him on. He's like, look, it's one thing when he was a last resort, putting him on the Guardians though, like, and Cecil basically ends it by saying, well, look, we can be the good guys or we can be the ones that save the world. We can't be both. And I just feel like that's such a defeatist way to look at things because you can be both. It is possible. But I feel like what happened in this past, it shook him so bad. Like, he just lives in the gray area forever. And I don't know, like, because what are we doing? What are we doing? Okay, and that's basically the end of the episode. Mark and Eve in our post-credit scene, they become official, which was so cute. I loved it. I feel like they did it way better here than in the books. Because if I remember correctly, I don't know, Eve was a bit boisterous about the whole thing. She was kind of like, well, look, are we dating or what? Not in the way Eve said it in this episode, which was really sweet and cute. The only thing I feel like with this scene, I wish Eve could have expressed herself more as far as like how she really feels with Mark. Because I feel like this whole episode, it was Mark expressing his feelings and how much he cares for Eve, but Eve didn't do the same. Like, even in the first episode, she was kind of like, oh, well, you know, it makes sense for us to get together. And it's like, but you know you were feeling him since season 1. So, like, tell us why, though. Tell us why. But either way, that is the end of the episode. Whew, what a doozy of an episode. Gotta give it, like, a 10 out of 10. Like, honestly, it was an amazing episode. It was amazing. I loved it. Yeah. That was a great episode. I don't have much else to say, so let me know what you think or don't. But either way, I'll catch you guys later. Bye.